Okay, it's Nick Dutch here yet again, and we're going through the 13 principles of Wiccan belief. This is the 5th video in this series. We're now having a look at the 4th principle of Wiccan belief. Just a quick recap. Going through 1, 2, and 3, I've more or less discovered that these are things that most people seem to be doing already, and it's something which is already more or less a part of my life, part of my attitudes. So 1, 2, and 3 I find very positive indeed, and is basically looking very, very good. We can tick all those 3 boxes, and yes, they do very much apply to me. But let's have a look at number 4, which says we conceive of the creative power in the universe. Fine, that's more or less a part of most religious movements and points of view, whether that's a God concept or a Holy Spirit concept or whatever, or indeed just nature, evolution. These are all creative powers in the universe. It says here it's manifesting through polarity as masculine and feminine. So on one side of things, this is being expressed as a theological doctrine, talking about male and female concepts as part of the divine. On the other aspect, it's talking about a creative power. It does not say a creator, all right? It does not say God. It says a creative power. So that could actually mean evolution, genetics. That could just mean nature in its own right. Manifesting through masculine and feminine. Okay. Well, there's obviously male and female creatures. So if you take the naturalistic genetic point of view, then yes, the creative power does manifest through masculine and feminine, so we can accept that quite easily. With the more supernaturalistic point of view, there will be differing opinions on that, and I'm sure that some people within the pagan and probably even the Wiccan community, although I can't state these facts, may see one being stronger than the other within their own lives and their own mindsets. But if you acknowledge the existence of one, you have to acknowledge the existence of the other, so there can't really be a problem with that. And then it says, and that this same creative power lies in all people. Okay, we're all alive, fine. Again, it's saying creative power, it's not saying God. And functions through the interaction of the masculine and feminine. Okay, so now it's getting into the, what I would regard as being the real pagan and the real traditional pagan ideas of reproductivity. So essentially it's similar, one could say, with the biblical idea of go forth and multiply. It's saying that, childbirth is a good thing. We value neither above the other, knowing it each to be supportive of the other. So there's skills and benefits that both have, and of course when it comes to sexual intercourse, it helps, to have people with the right equipment to do the job in question. We value sex as pleasure and a symbol of embodiment of life. Well, most people value sex as pleasure. We can say that without the shadow of a doubt. And as a symbol and embodiment of life. Now that part ties in very nicely with nearly everything. There's a lot of sexual symbolism in tarot. There's lots of sexual symbolism in Freemasonry, aspects of the Theosophical movement. Is there much sex in Christianity? Well, I think that depends upon the church that you go to, and but it's difficult to say. There are definitely a lot of pagan symbols in modern Christian churches. So again, this is another idea which, when we analyze it and we don't jump to conclusions that creative power just means God, can apply to everything. The words are creative power, okay? It goes on to say, and one of the sources of energy used in magical practices and religious worship. This is one part of the 4th principle that some people might have disagreements with if they do not use sexual symbolism. I mean, when it says here sources of energy used in magical practice and religious worship, it doesn't necessarily mean to say you have to get laid if you want to make a talisman. It says sources of energy, and now that could also apply to just symbolism and just the power of symbols and the ideas associated with the symbols. And as I said, there's, when it says magical practice, if that's talking about trying to create results using supernatural means. That may create some difficulties in interpretation if you think back to number 3, which spoke of supernatural, but didn't necessarily that meant the supernatural. That meant something which is sometimes called supernatural. If we're talking about magical in terms of the Crowleyan definition of art and science of causing change to occur in conformity with the will, that's not necessarily talking about ritual magic. That's talking about activity. And so we could also interpret that as gaining inspiration from different sources, men and women providing different varieties of advice, for instance. And religious worship. Okay, now with the religious worship side of things, yes, within Wicca you've always got the symbol of the cup and the athame, and with a lot of the pagan religions there's always the sense of the sexual unity symbolism, and some might even argue that there's some sexual unity symbolism in all the world's major religions, hidden in some places and some specific temples or some forms of symbolism. So if you were to look deep enough, yes, even the magical practice and religious worship aspects would be applicable and acceptable to a lot of people. I feel that the wording in the 4th principle is open to interpretation and misinterpretation. But I like the way it says creative power, and it doesn't say God and Goddess, because that opens up the practitioner's understanding to more potentials than just theological activities and worship. Alright, and of course the word worship actually comes from worth, to be worthy of, to bring yourself to a level of worthiness. So it's more of a sign of respect and again a sense of personal change. It's not bowing down in subservience to. This is something that a lot of Christians do get wrong. The word worship does not mean adoration or being a slave to your God. It actually means bringing yourself up to a level of worth to receive something from this concept. And the word worship does not necessarily imply that the deity itself exists. It implies the concept exists. So 4 is a little deeper and a little trippier, but yeah, to the most part, when we look deeply at this 4th principle, and we don't just see the words on face value or the way that they are understood by common parlance, but we expand the meanings, I can say that yes, I am in agreement with the 4th principle of Wicca. So my little short journey here so far has brought me into agreement with the 1st, 2nd, 3rd and 4th principle of Wicca. So let's see how I react as we go through the rest of the principles. Okay? I'll again turn the camera off and we'll set it going for the next one. See you in a few moments. Bye for now.